Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our live stream Q&A of a film that's playing in our new directors competition, My Brother's Dream Awake. We're so pleased to have here with us director and writer Claudia Hauiquimilla. Welcome, Claudia. And also joining us today is her co-writer and producer of the film, Pablo Green. Welcome, Pablo. Yeah, we're so happy to have you. I just wanted to say thank you to Sylvia, who will be interpreting for us today. Welcome, Sylvia, and thank you as always.
Thank you.
Before we get, well, I guess to start off, I had read a little bit about how you came to this story and, you know, the work that you did with boys or young men who were incarcerated in juvenile prison. So I was wondering if you could just tell the audience a bit about your experience working with these youth and how that inspired the film.
Bueno, primero saludo a todos que nos acompañan. Contarles que con nuestra primera película, Mala Junta, tuvimos la experiencia con Pablo de exhibirla en uno de estos centros de detención y ahí conocer a muchas chicas, muchos chicos, y fue una de las funciones más lindas que hemos tenido como realizadores, porque la película anterior se trataba de un joven prejuiciado y ellos son quienes vivían el prejuicio en carne propia y creo que fueron quienes mejor entendieron nuestra primera película.
So before anything else, I just want to say greetings to all of you. And we actually showed our first film, Mala Junta, that we also, work on with Pablo at a detention center, a juvenile detention center. So it was very interesting for us to see how the young men and the young girls received this film. It was really beautiful to see that, because they had been the target of the biases that the film was trying to portray.
Y al conocerlos, lo que hicimos con Pablo fue intentar recabar sus testimonios. Les contamos que íbamos a grabar una nueva película y les preguntamos qué querían contar ellas y ellos al mundo. Y hubo un caso en especial que nos remeció en uno de los centros de detención en el sur de Chile, en donde un grupo de jóvenes realizó un motín para pedir mejores condiciones y eso tuvo consecuencias fatales. Y en Chile esa historia está absolutamente borrada y sentimos que de algún modo el cine podía darle voz y rostro nuevamente a estos chicos.
So we were really inspired by that experience, and we decided to collect the testimonies of the young men and young women who were detained there. And we told them that we were going to be working on a new film. So we asked them, what do you want to show the world? And we found out about a case of in a detention center in Chile in 2007 where there was a riot because they were trying to demand better conditions for them. And well, that case has been kind of erased from Chilean history. And that's why we thought that maybe the film could give this case about not only a voice, but also a face to the world.
When this accident happened, that real case, we were shocked of the reactions and comments in the social media from or the other Chileans. Many of them were almost like celebrating that these boys died because in their words the society now is cleaner. Now we are better without them. So we were like really shocked. Like, how could you feel like that with some boys that you don't even know? And in Chile, we are a country of prejudices. I don't know how to say that word specifically, but bias, prejudices. It's a hard word. But we are a country. We are full of them. So that was one of the main reasons that we wanted to do this film, because the kids that the society talk about when they speak about these centers were not the same kids that we met when we were there. You know, they
Yeah.
were like warm people. You know, very with a big heart, funny boys with a lot of hopes. And struggling to, I don't know, to get a better life, you know. So we wanted to make that image of the people and bring it to the rest of the world, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that you do so well is, I mean, of course, we have the two leads, the brothers Ángel and Franco or Flea, who you're telling their story together. And I imagine there's a number of cases of siblings who are together in the detention centers. But, you know, you surround them with, I think, a whole kind of cast of really kind of interesting and well-rounded and very kind of sympathetic characters who I think kind of put, like you were saying, or it seems like what you're trying to do, which I think you absolutely do effectively, is give faces to the young men and women that are in there. So I was wondering how you came, I guess, settled on telling the story of these two brothers, and maybe a very specific case where they haven't been convicted yet, but they don't have any place to go home to because no one's willing to take them in.
See. The question was like, why this specific setup, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Ya, sí, entendí.
¿Por qué la historia específica de
Sí.
estos chicos que
Sí.
están condenados ahí,
Sí.
¿no?
No sé.
Queriendo salir, pero no pueden salir, ¿no? Por la situación.
Creo que para mí como directora, la adolescencia, la juventud es una energía vital necesaria y que de a poco se va durmiendo. Y creo que el cine es un refugio para poder reconectar con esa sensación, con esa energía que a veces es violenta, es irreverente, pero que genera cambios. Y cuando nosotros visitamos estos centros, un especialista nos dijo que la peor edad en la que puede desarraigar un ser humano de su comunidad es en la adolescencia. Y queríamos llevar a espectadores y espectadores a sentir en carne propia lo que puede ser vivir este encierro. Y justamente el querer proteger a quien tú más quieres te puede llevar a tomar decisiones precipitadas.
So as a director, I think it's very important to know that the adolescence means having a certain kind of energy, an energy that can lead you to do all kinds of things, and it could be violent at some point. But it is a very important energy because it moves us. So for us, it was very important to show how when these adolescents are locked in, how that energy gets manifested in the kinds of decisions that they have to make while they are locked in. And it was very important to show to the audiences what it means, how it feels to be locked in.
That's something I think all of us, we kind of know right now with the pandemic, you know.
Right.
So it's kind of an exercise that we are doing right now that even so we are locked up in a pandemic. Many of us have access to delivery, I don't know, music, internet, web, and still we are desperate to go out. Yeah. Imagine that if you have 14 years old, no family, no internet, no Wi-Fi. So yeah, we think like we are in a particular moment in the world that we can make a little more effort to emphasize, to have some empathy with these children, you know.
Creo que era importante contar esta historia más que una película de denuncia directa o de género carcelario. Es una historia de dos hermanos y la historia de un grupo de jóvenes que los une un poco el dolor y el que a lo mejor muchos de ellos no han visto a sus familias en mucho tiempo y se transforman en una familia no convencional. Esa es la historia que nosotros, a mí por lo menos como directora me llamó la atención al entrar a un lugar en el que parece que no hubiera vida y nosotros vimos mucha luz y vimos vidas que corren peligro de ser vulneradas y por eso sacamos sus voces a través del cine.
So as a director, it was very important for me to tell the story, not so much of denunciation, but to tell the story of these two brothers who, you know, of course, and also the other young men that were part of the story, or young women. That it's a story that has pain, of course, full of pain, but also I wanted to show how in the midst of that they were able to find a non-conventional family, if you wish. So, you know, that was important for me to tell, to show how there is life, there is light inside, and even though they suffer so many dangers, they are vulnerable, of course. We still wanted to give them voices.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many beautiful moments where you do have that sense that they're a family and supporting each other. But, you know, the scenes when they're dancing, or even when they're with, of course, in the classroom with the Senora. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about the casting of it because, you know, of course, Paulina Garcia is like one of the most acclaimed like Chilean actresses, and I just think she's always amazing. But you surround her by, I think, some young actors, and I was wondering how many of them had acting experience before, and if you could talk about the casting, because I love the interplay not only between the boys themselves, but also between, especially her character, Paulina's character, and the boys.
Bueno, tuvimos la fortuna ya en nuestra primera película de hacer esta mezcla entre actores profesionales y naturales, y el honor de contar con una gran actriz, una eminencia y maestra como Paulina García, pero me gusta eso complementarlo con actores naturales, como lo son los dos protagonistas. Los dos hermanos no tienen experiencia en el cine, es su primera película. Iván, la primera vez que se vio en una pantalla fue en el estreno en Locarno, en Suiza, así que estaba muy, muy emocionado. Muy emocionado.
So I had the fortune that in my first film, I was able to work with a mixed cast. It included professional, you know, actors and actresses, as well as young, you know, upcoming amateur actresses and actors. And with this film, I had the great fortune of being able to work with this great actress, which is Paulina Garcia. And we were able to complement her acting with also the acting of these young newcomers, new amateur actors. And this was actually their first film, and they were able to see themselves on the screen for the first time in Locarno, Switzerland.
Yeah.
Bueno, y es primera vez que Iván viaja fuera de Chile también, y eso marca que los dos hermanos, a pesar de no haber estado nunca en un centro de detención, ambos viven en barrios muy populares de clase baja en Chile, y por tanto creo que lo más importante es que entienden el motor de los personajes, entienden sus dolores, sus frustraciones, y algo muy lindo que tienen tanto Iván como César es que pueden encarnar la violencia para poder reclamar por sus derechos, pero a su vez también la vulnerabilidad, y nos recuerdan que son niños, que están esperando algo de cariño.
And for them, it was the first time that they had left Chile, and they have never been detained. However, they do come from popular low-income neighborhoods, so they were able to understand their characters, and they were able to understand the feelings, you know, the frustration, the pain, and it was very beautiful to see how they were able to embody the violence, to also reclaim their rights, but also how they are vulnerable, and because they are still children.
Y quizás solo decir por último que me encanta el que trabajar con actores naturales hace que el set sea un poco más amable, que dinámicas del cine que a veces son muy violentas las dejemos fuera, y porque el set está vivo, la escena se vuelve viva y es muy importante el escuchar. Entonces no solo aprenden los actores naturales de maestras como Paulina García, sino que también hace que los actores profesionales estén atentos y viviendo la escena.
And the last thing that I wanted to say is something that I really loved about working with these amateur actors and actresses is that, you know, the whole work becomes kinder or more kind, because sometimes with the violent dynamics, you know, things can get very hot. So having very professional actresses like Paulina Garcia that could actually provide guidance to the amateur actors and actresses, that was great. But also at the same time, Paulina was able to learn about, you know, how important it is to pay attention to what they're feeling, and, you know, the kindness that they bring to the work.
That's really nice. I was wondering if you could talk about the location and where you shot it, because clearly you had to have access to some type of facility, and where that was, you know, both in terms of actually the detention center itself, but also the landscape beyond it with the mountains.
Well, we work a lot with the, I don't know how to say, the National Youth Service. That's the name of the, okay. When we showed our last film, Bad Influence, Mala Junta, in those centers, we made good contacts with them. But when we were to make this movie and we needed a place to shoot, it was a little hard, no, a lot harder, because these centers are managed by the Youth National System and I don't know the translation, Gendarmería, but it's the armed people that custody prisons, you know? I don't know how to translate it.
Guards,
Yeah.
detention guards, yes.
Yeah, of course.
Guards.
And so we were like one whole year trying to make advances and to get to shoot inside of these places. After a lot of time, we get to shoot in this place, but one day. And it wasn't one day, because you need like 3 hours to enter and 3 hours to get out. So it was like 6 hours. And with a team of 10 people, including director, 2 actors, and me, the camera, the sound, etc. So it was a pretty challenging design production, you know, to make 3 separate locations see at one.
Right. Yeah.
So in the real prison that you can see, which is like a prison surrounded by trees, but it's not quite isolated, you know. There are some houses that Claudia and with the photography they hide it, you know. But there are 3 locations, 2 schools, and the real prison where we shot the 6 hours inside, and all the surroundings, all the exteriors were in the real prison. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, and I want to get back to this at the end, but, you know, clearly there's a critique of the system within the film. So I was wondering about that type of access to the location. But so speaking of the forest, you know, obviously you use this forest imagery throughout the film. And, you know, that's one of the kind of dreams, right? Or the escape, or the idea of being outside. Or free is represented by the forest. But what's interesting to me is like that escape obviously is not home. Like when you're dreaming of being out, when he's dreaming of being outside, it's not dreaming of being in a house or in the town or the city, you know, where they're from, but really being kind of lost in nature. And I was wondering kind of how you hit upon this idea of the imagery of the forest. Was it from one of the testimonies or the stories of one of the kids that you first interviewed, or you know, of course, it's also a beautiful image. So I was wondering where that came from.
Bueno, creo que es importante para contestar eso el contar que yo soy indígena, de una comunidad indígena en Chile, y por tanto la naturaleza es como algo que me conforma, y por tanto cuando tuve que ir a estos centros, una de las cosas donde puse mi atención fue este contraste entre el encierro y el bosque que rodeaba este lugar. cuando uno está en ese lugar, uno sigue viendo que hay testimonio de voces que ya no están enrayados en las paredes, pero también que los niños entre casas que están separadas se comunican por silbidos. Y esos silbidos se pierden en el viento. Y sentí que estas voces de estos niños de algún modo están perdidas en el lugar, una especie de limbo. Entonces, eres la primera persona que lo deduce tal cual. Para mí no es el hogar. Efectivamente, este bosque es la representación de una especie de limbo donde quedan estas voces perdidas o efímeras, se pierden en el viento. Perdón lo largo, Silvia.
I'll try to do my best. So nature is something very important for me. It's part of me because I come from an indigenous community. So nature is part of who we are. So when I was there, I was paying attention to, at the location, I was paying attention to the contrast between, the being locked in or inside, and also the outside, which is the nature surrounding the location. So for me, it was very important to show and this imagery of the forest. And also you could see a lot of that imagery on the paintings and drawings on the walls, which is what refers to, what the kids are thinking. But also the other thing that, is inviting for me is that the forest imagery is that it shows how, ephemerous and how beautiful. Okay, I'm sorry, I lost the main idea there, but dijiste algo que algo era efímero. ¿Qué era lo efímero? ¿Me lo podrías repetir?
Sí, que cuando uno está en el centro, los chicos se comunican a pesar de estar en diferentes casas por silbidos, y ese sonido se pierde con el viento. Entonces es como que sus voces son efímeras, y con esta película acceden un segundo a escucharlas, pero se pierden en este limbo, que esa es la representación para mí del bosque. Este limbo no aplica a los niños.
So the forest, it's like a limbo, a space. So when you are actually in nature, in the forest, a lot of people communicate with by whistling, and this whistling represents those voices that are ephemeral, that can get lost. And this is really what the forest imagery tries to also bring in, the kind of idea that their voices of being detained and being inside are being lost, and in this world.
Yeah, and I mean the whistling also struck me, and that's his, like, it is also represents his one way of communicating with the outside world, but it's with the birds, it's not with the humans.
See, yes. Sometimes it gets confused if it's the birds or the voice,
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Para mí, creo que necesitaba dar un final en donde de algún modo quedara presente estos espíritus, que no se perdieran, y por eso esta similitud entre los silbidos o los pajaritos, y creo que es para que ojalá prestemos más atención a algo que está ahí, que no estamos viendo, y por eso esa similitud y ese link con el sonido de los pájaros.
For me, it was very important to show at the end of the film, the presence of the spirits, and so things are not really lost. And that's why the similarity between the whistling and the birds, sound, and invites us to pay attention to those kinds of sounds that are there.
Right. I wanted to come to this idea of dreaming that's in the title, but then is recurring throughout, because the title is My Brother's Dream Awake. But I mean, for me, the dreams seem to represent many different, different ways of dreaming. I mean, one is the very beginning of the film. They're of course awake and talking about imagining what their future is, and in 1 year or 5 years, and where do they see themselves? And so kind of a dream for a future. But also we at one point there, early in the film, there's Ángel is actually actively dreaming while he's sleeping. But yes. It also occurred to me that there's they're never truly able to sleep in peace, because who knows even what's going to happen when they're asleep. And so maybe it's different kind of to dream when you're asleep than if you're in the comfort of your home. But at the same time, I was also thinking about kind of this idea of maybe like a living nightmare. So kind of the positive idea of dreaming, but also maybe a more negative one. And these are just my interpretations. Oh, and then of course there's that where they're like in the meditation with the teacher, where she's having them actively dream. So I was wondering if you could talk about as a way of relaxing their minds and their bodies. So I was wondering if you could just talk about these different ideas of dreaming and kind of maybe what the strongest representation of dreaming was for you.
Well, first, absolutely yes. Everything you said. Yes and yes. Second, to add something, when we were there in these centers, one of the things that most shocked us was that you lost the sense of time and place and like weather, because it's like a micro space. When you enter, they take your phone, your watch. You can see the hour. The only thing it's the sun. And like many of these children are with are very anxious, because they don't know how many times they have there. They have to give them drugs and a lot of drugs. So many times what happens to them is that they truly don't know if they're awake, if they're sleeping, if what day it is, what time is it, because they lost every connection to the real world, even the sobriety, to be able to be like right here. So to all the things you said about the title, we will add this. It's a mix of all these things, the dream, the real dreams that these boys have to get out of there, and the confusion with what is reality, what is a dream, and what is imagination. That is not the same, like kind of that.
Yeah. No, I think it's the way in which you kind of use all of these senses of dreaming, I found really striking and beautiful. I did want to ask you to go back to this question of the difficulty of shooting, of course, in the prison, because there's a very strong critique of the system, in the film. You'd worked with this youth services, bringing film to the kids there before. But I guess my question is, when you think about making this type of film, you think about what the impact of it is going to be. And is there the possibility of by making a film that you might be able to change like the hearts and minds of people, or even eventually change the system? So I was wondering if there's I guess a plan right now or something in place for you to really get the film out, not just into the world, but maybe more specifically into Chile, to think about how you can change the way people see these youth. As you mentioned at the beginning, there's a lot of prejudice, and two, like if there's the possibility of changing the system.
Bueno, no, la filmación de la película se llevó a cabo durante el llamado estallido social en Chile, y una de las mayores demandas que se escuchaban en la calle tenía que ver con el fin de esta institución. Y con esas protestas se consiguió algo que hoy es muy importante, y es que estamos escribiendo una nueva constitución en nuestro país. Y en ese sentido creemos que como película podemos aportar al diálogo desde un lado humano, para que se resguarde en esta nueva constitución la defensa y resguardo de los derechos de la infancia y de la adolescencia, especialmente de la niñez vulnerada.
So we actually were filming during the social uprising that happened in Chile, and when people went out to the streets and protest. In fact, one of the demands in this protest was to end this institution. And in the end, what the protest and the uprising achieved was the writing of a new constitution in Chile. So one of the things that we want to do with this film is to actually contribute to the dialogue about how important it is to include the rights of children, the rights of adolescent young people, and also, the rights of those who are vulnerable.
Something like that we are trying to do right now, and I think we will be able to do it. It's that, well, in Chile now, like Claudia said, historically we are now changing the constitution after 40 years. It was from Augusto Pinochet, something that we had to done a really long time ago, and we choose 155 constituents who were democratically elected by all the people. And we are now we are in meetings, and we are trying to bring this movie to the place that they are writing the constitution right now, and we are arranging an exhibition to them in order to see the movie, and after the movie have a little conversation, open conversation about the how and what can we do to fix this, especially in the writing of this new constitution. So we have faith that this will work out, but yes, well, we will do it. We will do it. And we are now getting the premiere in Chile in cinemas. We are the first Chilean film to come back to cinemas after 19 months because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We are taking a risk, but we truly think that people want to come back to cinema, and especially in these times, movies that are talking about our problems right now, our urgent issues,
right.
And especially because they are told in the point of view of a director who loves her characters, who wants to represent this voice as how we see them, which are full of light, they are full of future, So we want to touch people both in the legal way of, I hope, in the Constitution, but especially in their hearts. Like in your question, in order to change the system, we have to change ourselves,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And what about plans, again, for maybe touring this to the detention centers? Have you shown it yet in any of the detention centers, and what are the plans for that?
Me encantaría que podamos volver con nuestro equipo, pero me encantaría también poder hacer la invitación a más de mis compañeras y compañeros cineastas a mostrar películas, para que se forme un programa constante. Específicamente con esta película creo que no nos interesa tanto mostrarles a ellos, porque creo que este es el ejercicio inverso, en donde son estas voces las que tenemos que llevar afuera, para que gente quiera ir a aportar desde su lugar. Creo que es una misión de todos y todos nosotros el atender desde nuestra profesión ahí, y creo que ese es nuestro rol como artistas, lo que nosotros podemos aportar. Así que volveremos, pero creo que ojalá para hacer clases o para mostrar otras películas, porque creemos que esta tiene que ser afuera.
So I would love to do it. However, actually, I'm more interested in inviting other filmmakers to actually do those kinds of films, to go to those places, and that there is a constant program of filmmaking that is, addressing these kinds of issues and showing what these people are feeling. Right now, I think the important thing is to show to the outside what is, happening in the inside.
Right.
So that's our mission right now with this film. I think it is a moment where people are trying to contribute from their own location, from their own sense of self, important things for the building of society. So I think it would be actually great to actually organize maybe film classes or other kinds of activities in the detention centers, but the people or the young people in the detention centers are also able to watch other films that are produced by other people too.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing this film with our audiences, and I wish you the very best of luck on the release in Chile of the film.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us in your great festival. We really wanted to go there, but we couldn't because of this and these strange times. But thank you. We are really happy to be able to be in Chicago.
Great. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Y bueno, uno hace una película pensando especialmente en nuestro país, en nuestra gente, pero las historias son universales, nos damos cuenta que hay problemas que nos convocan en todas partes del mundo, así que bueno, un saludo grande a quienes nos ven, a quienes conectaron con nuestra historia, y tenemos redes sociales, que no sé cómo se dice en inglés, pero bueno, está en Instagram, nos pueden buscar también y ahí va a haber información sobre la película.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank you and also to just leave you with, a thought that I think right now, it's very important to show what people, in other countries, what our people are trying to tell, the kinds of stories that they are trying to tell, and because we can find commonalities in what other people are also experiencing around the world. And we're finding that a lot of these histories, a lot of these issues are universal. So also wanted to let you know that you can connect with us via Instagram. And so you can look for us there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Muchas gracias.